shamanic circle yesterday, and I enjoyed that. It was an hour group therapy session. It was beneficial to me. We did this indigenous, I want to say wailing, or something like that. That's a way to use sound to express emotion. People all over the world, they did commentary or questions from people in the class, and there are people from Spain and Mexico, America. I mean, there are people all over the world, which I love stuff like that, because it doesn't matter where you come from, we all have these emotions. We're all human beings, and we all have to deal with grief in all its many forms. And grief can look that's on my nose. Grief can look like your child was raped. Grief can look like a car accident that left a lasting injury. Grief can look like the death of a loved one. I personally have had 7 deaths in the last year. People that I've known more than 20 years. Right? That's a lot. That's a lot of death. But also the grief, within the last 5 years, I did my DNA kit, and found out that I am descended from 2 genocides. My ancestors, the German side on my mom's dad's side was from Germany, and they fled just before the Holocaust, within 5 years before the Holocaust. They fled Germany, so it was a really just the beginning of the Nazi regime, and the horrible stuff that started happening. Beginning of the concentration camps, that's when they fled Germany. So that's why I say they fled the Holocaust, because it's the same time frame. I look very white, and there are things that happen in families that you don't really always understand it, right? Because you're but I'm white, so why does that bother me so much? Why does this why do I have a natural inclination towards shamanism? Why is this something that interests me? Why do I search that and seek that constantly? I've taken a couple courses with a Hawaiian shaman, an African shaman, a native shaman. I've read a bunch of books. I'm just signed up for a 2-year, I think it's 2 years that the movies are going to be released at different intervals, but it's lifetime access to this material. And the class, or the group therapy session yesterday, was from someone in that group, African and indigenous wisdom, and she is an expert at healing ancestral trauma, which is why I'm interested in it. I did a couple classes, and I follow her channel on YouTube, but she is an Afro-Indigenous healer and expert. She's got a PhD in Indigenous studies, and I've done guided meditations, past life regressions with her and with other counselors that actually have psychology degrees, and there's some information out there that talks about how in numerology, if you like I'm a number 5. So if you're a number 5, then that means you were born. The last time that your soul was here on this planet in a living body, in a living temple, was 5 generations ago. And if that's true for me, like, there's someone that like I do ancestral stuff now, right? Like, so I did my DNA and I'm researching ancestral stuff, and like my brother, there's an ancestor that like what if that's my brother? Because my brother looks just like that person 5 generations ago, and the woman that he married looks just like the wife of that person. Like, facial features look exactly the same, and you're like, that's weird. What if there's something to that? Right? Like, what if that's legit? Right? And all of this stuff is like theoretically, because you can't prove it. There's no way to prove it. You can't prove who your soul was 5 generations ago. Right? Like, you can't even prove that you have a soul. There is medical research that shows, like, a study where they try to capture the weight of the soul. They try to capture the weight of the body and how it changes upon death. And there is a change that happens. But you can't, like, prove it. So it's interesting to me that, like, I might be like a Cherokee ancestor who experienced the Trail of Tears. And one of the past life regressions that I did, like, it's like I was this person. Hunting bear. And that's 5 generations ago, and he was beaten. He was held, like, aggressively, arms outstretched, put on his knees, and they just beat the shit out of him. And this is like a meditation, hypnosis, past life regression thing, and it was very intense. It's like I was that person, getting hit, getting beat. I have broken my jaw in this lifetime. And when we were born, there were supposed to be 3 of us, and one of the embryos did not develop. So I have to change hands while I'm driving. So, like, what if that means that I'm a 2 spirit, right? Like, how do you know if you're a 2 spirit? Do you decide that? Does somebody else decide that? Like, is there some kind of, like, defining thing where you're, like, aware of your masculine and feminine, and that makes you a 2 spirit? Like, in Cherokee understanding, it's about, like, the balance between the masculine and feminine. According to, I can see her face, but I can't think of her name. Lila June? I want to say that's her name. She's a native wisdom keeper, and I have done some, like, I've watched her on YouTube and followed her channel. I also did a couple of classes with the Shift Network with her speaking. But she talks about that, how, like, if you're a 2 spirit, it's because you're, like, balanced between the masculine and the feminine. Anyways, I got allergies and, like, sinus drainage. That's all that is. So, like, the other side of him would have been Moon Eyes or Flower Face. And I think that I'm Moon Eyes. Just based on, like, like, one of my first experiences with shamanism was with a Hawaiian shaman. I did a Sacred Temple Lomi Lomi class in 2017. And there was something that happened like in that class where it looked like a water being from like that movie Abyss, right? And it's coming out from my root chakra. So I mean, it freaked me out. I didn't know what the fuck it was because I'm white. So I didn't grow up in a native culture. I didn't grow up understanding native ways. Like I have 1% native DNA, and that was like a huge grief for me to understand that, like, wow, like genocide really works. Racism is a real thing, and that heritage has kind of, it's gonna make me cry. Whew. Still, that heritage has kind of been taken out of our family. And like, we do still talk about things. We do still talk about like equality and like making sure that you're treating people fairly. But I guess I didn't understand like why my mom made such a big deal out of it. And that would be why, like, because our family has learned that lesson in an extremely hard way. And although, like, I may not have experience, I mean, my mom did. She was kicked down the stairs in high school because they were going to teach the white bitch a lesson. But, like, it does flavor your experience of the world to have those kind of stories handed down to you and talked about. And, like, I watched, or I did a class, it was an all-day long class on maternal wellness and generational trauma. And Dr. Maddox talked about her experience of being raised by her grandma, who was a survivor of a slave training plantation. So, like, her view of white people was skewed or flavored by that experience that her grandma had. And you can't change that, right? What that means is that, like, okay, I have these glasses and they have a different tint on the outside of them than these ones, right? So my view going outward and seeing the world is going to be a little different based on these glasses or these glasses, right? That's what that means. It means that the way you see the world, the way you interpret information is going to be different because of that starting point. And I just think that that's like relevant when it comes to generational trauma. That's relevant to coming through and understanding trauma and like things that you could possibly be carrying, emotional wounds that you don't even understand that you have. And why is this such a big deal to me? Why am I so triggered? And that can go along the lines of like some coursework that I did with my psychology degree, and counseling that I did years ago, on like Brian Weiss and like Many Lives, Many Masters, where he talks about like a past life, trauma from a past life could be causing you to have that extreme anxiety and you don't even understand it because you don't have any information on your past life. So he talked about like actual clinical studies and clinical experience with patients who, like this one woman was sleeping in her closet on the floor, not in her own bed, because she had like past life stuff. They did regression work and she was able to like actually sleep in her own bed again. And like come off of medication. And I mean, like I find stuff like that fascinating, how much the brain controls the body and the mind, and like how much your trauma controls who you are and how you move through the world. And not just your trauma, but like your past trauma. A past life is doing that, but you can't wrap your brain around how any of that stuff could possibly have any problems in your life. Oh, that's not real and you can't prove it and you're just crazy.